Chapter 14. The Most Important Day. Ponder over. Wild. Blossom. Barriers. Freedom. Lectures. Hurdle. Restrictions. Suddenly. It was the summer of 1880. A healthy baby girl was born in a small town in Alabama. Her parents loved her dearly and named her Helen. But one day, the baby became ill, and day after day, her fever stayed high. Everyone in the family tried to help her to get better, but all they could say was, "There is nothing more we can do. The baby may not live." Helen survived, but she was not the same after her illness. "Something is very wrong," her mother said. At last they found out what was wrong. The baby could not see or hear. The baby grew into a little girl. Her parents felt sorry for her. Helen often cried and held on her mother. "Maybe you should give the poor child what she wants," her father would say. Though Helen could not hear or see, she was a bright little girl. Some people thought Helen could not learn anything. "Why don't you just send her away somewhere?" they said. Her mother did not agree. "Thanks, but Helen is very smart," she said and added. "The problem is, how can we reach her? She's locked up inside herself." Helen began to grow wild. She would not let anyone comb her hair. Her clothes were always dirty. She was often angry. Sometimes she even laid on the floor and kicked her feet. Her parents thought that they should find a teacher for her. Miss Sullivan, a young teacher, agreed to help Helen to learn to see the world. Miss Sullivan gave Helen a doll. Doll, spell it. D-O-L-L. Doll. Miss Sullivan spelled the word with her fingers into Helen's hand. She made the letters with special hand sign. Helen copied her teacher and spelled D-O-L-L too. But she did not understand what she was doing. She did not know what she was spelling a word or even that word existed. Helen liked Miss Sullivan. She was strict but kind. In the days that followed, Helen learned to spell. In this way, great many words, among them were pen, hat, cup, and a few verbs like sit, stand, and walk. But her teacher had been with her several weeks before she understood that everything had a name. One day, her teacher made Helen put her hand into running water. Then she spelled water, W-A-T-E-R. Suddenly, Helen understood that W-A-T-E-R meant something wet running over her hand. She understood that words were most important things in the world. Words would tell her everything she wanted to know. Helen learned words that day. Mother, father, sister, teacher were among them. Words that were to make the words blossom for her. It would have been difficult to find a happier child than Helen as she laid in her bed at the close of that eventful day. She thought about the joys it had brought her and for the first time longed for a new day to come. By the end of August, in 6 short months, Helen had known 625 words. Miss Sullivan wanted her to feel the nature and care for it. She gifted her a bird on her birthday. Helen, which was very wild earlier, turned into a caring, nature-loving little girl. She took care of the bird like a mother. She used to talk to her in her own sign language, though she never got reply for it. It was hard for a girl who could not neither see or hear to keep a heart touch with everyone in the nature. But Helen had cleared all the barriers and reached to the height of freedom. By the time she was 16, Helen could speak well enough to go to college. Helen Keller, the little girl, became one of history's most famous women. She used to give educational and moral lectures in various colleges worldwide. Helen Keller could communicate in a number of ways: braille, touch lip reading, finger spelling, and typing on a typewriter. Blindness, deafness, not any hurdle for her now. She had got freedom from all her restrictions that nature had given her. Wordpedia, wild, violent, barriers, life problems, lecture, speeches, huddle, problems, bright, intelligent, looked for, wished, blossom, become happy, freedom, liberty to live life, restrictions, foundations. Suddenly, without giving time, existed, used in the day-to-day